This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so yesterday we were discussing about the different types of performance testing, right? So we understood the definition, like uh, checking the performance of an application by applying some expected load. Okay, and I also mentioned one point yesterday that performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. I also uh, started with different types of performance testing, where we have load test, stress test, endurance or soak or duration test. We can call with any of these names, and scalability test, and then volume test and failover test. So we started with load test yesterday. I mentioned that this is the first major test that we run in any project. The main purpose of running the test is to check the speed of the application. Okay, so how fast the pages are loading, how fast the user is able to navigate from one page to another page, all these things matter. Okay, so what do you mean by load? Load here indicates the number of users. Okay, load here indicates number of users. So what is that we verify in this test? Like when you run this test, main thing is we verify response time, and the response time according to the industry standard it should be 2 seconds. Okay, and that 2 seconds, or it can be more also, but whatever it is, it will be given by client, and it can be a kind of agreement between the client and the application team. Okay, this test we run for 1 hour, a steady state. This test we run for 1 hour steady state, excluding ramp up and ramp down. Yesterday I told you what is a ramp up and ramp down. So when you gradually increase the load like this is called ramp up, and then you run for some time, that is called steady state, and then you gradually decrease the load, this is called uh, ramp down. Okay, so ramp up, steady state, ramp down. Okay, now we verify major performance issues like high response times, unexpected errors, memory utilization, CPU utilization. All these things we verify or monitor, for this test. And if this test itself is a failure, we cannot uh, move to the next test, or we cannot run any other tests. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Of course we can run, but that doesn't make sense, right? So the basic major test itself is if it's a failure, there is no point in running the remaining tests. Okay, now this is all about the load test. Anyone has any queries till here? Till here we discussed yesterday, right? So anyone has any queries still here? Okay, so I'll did is anyone who is not in the session yesterday and joined today? I mean, if you have any questions, let me know, because this yesterday I have covered this, but then there was some unexpected, emergencies. That's the reason the session got automatically stopped actually. Okay, so hope everyone are clear with this so far. Now let's go to the next test, that is stress test. So as part of stress test, what we do, the name itself is almost self-explanatory. We are stressing the system. Okay, that means uh, checking the application performance, checking the application performance with more amount of load, more amount of load than the load test, basically, with more number of users you can mention, or users or volumes. Okay, checking the application performance with more amount of users or volumes than the load test. Okay, that means, for example, in the load test, let's say you ran with 500 users. In stress test, you can run with 600, 700, 800, 1000, like that. And sometimes there can be a scenario where your client might ask you to test until the system breaks. Okay, so Here I'm just writing, for example, if load test is executed with 500 users, then stress test can be like 600 or 700 or 800 and so on. I mean, it can go to an extent where we verify when the system is breaking, okay, with how many users it's gonna support. Okay, that is also possible here. I'll give you one example with respect to stress test. Let's say there is a restaurant and there are 5 tables, and there is one owner of the restaurant and then one helper who takes orders from all these 5 tables and delivers the food. Okay, now the business was going fine. All the 5 tables are almost full every day. Suddenly, there is an increase in the demand. Then the owner of the restaurant decided to increase the number of tables from 5 to 7. Now, this helper who was managing 5 tables, now this helper has to start managing 7 tables. Now, helper is taking orders from all 7 tables and then ordering or delivering the food, okay, onto the table. That's fine. Now, again, there's a huge demand. Now, the owner decided to increase the number of tables from 7 to 9. This helper is now, uh, no, this helper should now accept orders from 9 tables instead of 7. Okay, the helper was able to do that, but the amount of time taken to deliver the food onto the table has increased drastically because a single helper couldn't manage all 9 tables, and it is directly impacting the food delivery time. Okay, so I mean the helper is still able to do it, but then let's say when it was 5 tables, the helper was able to deliver the food in 20 minutes. Now let's say he's taking like the helper is taking like 30 minutes or something like that. That means the delivery time increased, right? Now let's say still there is a huge demand. The owner decided to increase the number of tables from 9 to 11. Now in this case, the helper decided, the helper decided that it is no more possible to handle all these 11 tables, and then he quit the job and left. That means the max he could manage is only 9 tables, and that too with a delay in the delivery. That means there is some performance issue, that is there is some delay in the delivery. Okay, and then in that way the helper could manage 9 tables. So that was the max with some performance degradation, but the max table with a proper delivery time was only 7 tables. So like this, when you keep on adding or increasing the tables, it eventually increase the stress as well. And then finally, at some point, it breaked, the help us, uh, you know, zeal to work and all that stuff, and the helper left, quit the job. So the max he could accept and serve or deliver the food was only 7 tables with proper delivery time, good delivery time. Okay, in that way we can similarly with respect to applications, we can keep on increasing the users like 500 to 600, 700, 800. At some point, the system will stop responding because it could not manage the number of users. Okay, so that at that point you can say, or you can call it as a breaking point also. You can call it as a breaking point. So that means with those many number of users, okay, the system will not be able to respond. That's the max. Any questions? Did you understand what is stress test? Okay. So now for how long this test will run? Of course, you can run in a similar
Uh,
time.
excuse, uh, is that possible to give the example? Um, Again,
Sorry.
I think I missed something. Is that possible to
Okay.
say the example, like the
Okay. Um, okay. So generally, we are discussing about the stress test. It is one of the performance test actually. It is one type of performance test. Okay, so this type of test will be done, uh, I mean, just to increase the stress against the system and to see how it is responding. Okay, so if you run the load test with 500 users, generally we give more number of users here than the load test and then try to execute. For example, in the load test, if you run with 500, the stress test you can run with some 600, 700, 800, and so on. Sometimes it can go to an extent where you test or you keep on testing until the system breaks. Okay. Now, the generic example which I have given is uh, the restaurant example. Okay, let's say a restaurant or any nearby dining place. Okay, so there was, I mean, I took an example where where there were 5 tables in the dining restaurant, and there was one helper or the person who is assisting to take orders and deliver food onto the table. Okay, so he was able to manage all 5 tables to to accept the orders and deliver the food and all those stuff. And then the restaurant owner decided to increase the number of tables from 5 to 7 due to increase in demand. Then this helper or the waiter, now is handling 7 tables instead of 5. Okay, and then the owner decided to further increase the number of tables from 7 to 9. Okay, but then still this helper could manage all 9 tables, but there was some performance degradation in terms of delivery time. Okay, earlier the waiter used to deliver the food in 20 minutes. Now let's say the same for 9 tables, it is taking like 35-40 minutes like that, right? That means there is some performance degradation. That means there is a delay in the delivery time, which is nothing but some performance issue. Now, when finally the tables got increased to 11, the helper said that it is not possible to handle all 11 tables by one person, and then the helper quit the job. Okay, that means the max the helper could manage was only like 7 tables, seven or 9 tables, that too with performance degradation. So this way, you have stressed the helper. Okay, you kept on stressing the helper or the waiter to handle all the tables, but then at some point of time, okay, which we call it as a breakpoint time, the helper or the sister didn't or decided not to work further anymore and then quit the job. So similarly, in software applications, when you keep on increasing the load against the system, at some point it will attain the breaking point. That means the max load that the application can handle will be at some point. That is called breaking point. So you might have to keep on increasing the users until you test for that breaking point. Sometimes, rarely we do that. Okay, otherwise a normal stress test would be like just increase the number of users to some extent, like 50%, like not 50 basically. Like if you're running the stress test with 500, you just keep on increasing like 600, 700, 800, something like that. Okay, and this test also we run for 1 hour, excluding ramp up and ramp down. We verify the same things here as well. Okay, any performance issues or anything, okay, we verify the same thing here as well. Okay, and SLA here, response times will always, yeah, go ahead. Okay, so we
Thank
verify,
you. That's
yeah,
just
yeah, thank you. So here also we verify for the performance issues like high response times, any unexpected errors, how the system is behaving in terms of its resources like CPU utilization, memory utilization, and so on. Okay, so this is all about the stress test. Then, any questions before I move on to the next test? This is the third type of test. It is called endurance or soak or duration test. You can call with any name, but the meaning is same. In some projects they call endurance test, in some projects they call a soak test, in some projects they call as a duration test. Okay, but the meaning is same. What exactly we do here is we check the stability of the application. We check the stability of the application. What do you mean by checking the stability? See here, if you see, I have mentioned performance testing is measured in terms of speed and stability and scalability. So stability here, the term, I am referring it to this type of test. So when you perform an endurance test or a soak test or a duration test, we actually check the stability of the application. We actually check the stability of the application. Okay. Now, uh, what do you mean by stability, or how do you validate the stability? So stability here means in the long run, okay, like when you run the test for more than 1 hour, like for 3 hours or 5 hours, how stable is your application? Okay, how the response times are coming up? Okay, whether the response times are stable or similar throughout the test, or the response times increased or decreased, what is happening during the endurance test? Okay, so when you say a step an endurance test, generally we run it for 3 hours minimum. 3 hours. Some projects they run for 5 hours. Some projects they run for 8 hours. Some projects they run for 1 day also. I mean, it can go to 3 and 5 days also, but then it's very, very rare. Okay. For me, the max I ran is like 8 hours in all the projects. I never ran any test for 1 day, but then there are very few projects they ran 1 day also. But then the average number they use is like 5 to 8 hours. Okay. So the test that you run will be, it should be for like 3 hours or 5 hours or 8 hours. This is called endurance or soak test or duration test. So what is the main reason is how stable is your application when you run it for a longer duration with max number of users. So let's say you're running a test for 5 hours. Let's say uh, we are running a test for 5 hours. Now in this, okay, in the first 1 hour, okay, in the first hour, what are the response times? Like how the response times are coming? Okay, how the response times are coming up? Uh, like you know, like 2 seconds or 3 seconds average, on an average, how the response times are coming? Then second hour, then third hour, okay, third hour, then fourth hour, okay, then fifth hour. Like that, we keep on monitoring the application during the entire test, and the main motto is the application performance should be same throughout the test. That means in the first 1 hour, let's say you are getting an average response times of 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, you are getting an average response time of, let's say, 2 to 3 seconds. In the second 1 hour also it should be same. Third 1 hour also it should be same. Let's say third second also same. Second also you have some, same. And then let's say third also you have same. And then okay, let's say for fourth, let's say it is coming as like 5 to 8 seconds. What is the problem? Here the problem arises. That means the response times were pretty much common or same, similar in the first 3 hours, but then in the fourth hour, not sure what happened. The response times increased. Okay, that means the application is not stable enough. There is some issue that popped up, okay, because of which the response times increased drastically in the fourth hour. Now we have to explicitly go and reach out to developer and ask them to verify why there is a spike, okay, why there is an increase in the response times in the fourth hour of the test. What exactly happened during that time? Okay, so even you, with the help of any APM tool like AppDynamics or Dynatrace, can also see what could be the reason for a rise in response times, okay, spike in response times during the test. Okay, but it's better to discuss with developer also, so that they will also have some idea about what went right, what went wrong during that particular time. Okay, any questions? Here also we verify all this stuff. And especially here in the endurance test, there is every chance, there is a max chance of getting an issue called memory leak. It's a different or vast concept. We will discuss at the end, of course, not now. But then there is something called memory leak, which can happen during any performance test. So the chances of getting the memory issues are high, very high in endurance test when compared to other types of test. I'm not saying you will not see memory leak in other types of tests, but the chances are very high in endurance or soaked or duration test. Okay. Now, one more question is, with how many users we run this test? Okay, with how many users we run this test? In some projects, I mean, there is no specific answer. There are two options that you can follow. In some projects, okay, in some projects, they prefer 75% of the load from 75% of the volume, you can say volume from the load test. Okay, in some projects, they prefer 100%. That means the load should be same as the load test. See, for example, in load test you run with 500 users. Now in some projects they run with 75% of the load. Let's say, what is 75% of 500? 350. So they will run with 350 users here. In some projects they will run with same 500 users only. The most of the times the load for this and the load test will be same. Okay, that's what I personally prefer. Okay, I don't want to reduce the load and see the stability of the application. Okay, when the client has decided that we need to test with some volume, I prefer to use the same volume. Okay, personally. So if your project, if your project doesn't follow anything, then you can follow this one. Or if your project is following the first one, that is also fine. But 99%, I think this is a better option. Any questions for this? Are you guys understanding what are the different types of tests we have?
Uh, Krishik, so when
Yeah.
you say that memory leakage, right? How a performance engineer can understand that we are facing a memory leakage issues?
Even you can find out whether memory leak is happening or not with the help of APM tool. Okay, so in APM tool, you have a memory heap utilization or memory utilization, right? So you can see how much utilization has been done during the test. If it is reaching 100%, obviously that means there is some memory leak that is happening. So it should not reach 100%. Okay, there is something called garbage collection which should run in parallel, which should actually free up the memory. Okay, during, I mean, when you run the test or when you run the application, if maybe if there is some problem with the garbage collection mechanism and it is not freeing up the memory, then there is high chance of getting memory leak. So you can also monitor that through any of the APM tool like AppDynamics or Dynatrace and report it to the developer.
Okay.
Okay, so this is about endurance test, or soak test or duration test. The next one is scalability test. Okay, see here that it is actually referring to the term scalability directly. Okay, so here scalability means checking the performance of an application by considering future growth. Okay, is uh, like this is like more or less depends on the client input, depends mostly on client input on the volumes. So client has to tell about what is their future growth. Based on that, you can take a call. For example, now you have run the load test with 500 users, correct? Example, you have run the load test with 500 users. Now client is saying that in the next 6 months, the probability of users increasing is up to 150%. So that means currently you are running with 500 users, which is equivalent to the 100% load. Now, if the client is saying that in the next 6 months, the users might increase up to 150%, that means what is 50% of 500? 250. So what is 150% here? 500 plus 250, that is 750 users. So now itself you have to test with 750 users and tell the client whether the application is good enough to withstand the amount of load. Okay. I'll tell you one example. I mean, sometimes this type of test is requirement can be an ad hoc requirement also. Do you remember? We all know the pandemic, right? It started in 2020, somewhere in the March. So I was supporting for one of the bank. Okay, at that time, I was supporting for one of the bank at that time. So in the month of, I think in the month of May, and we all know at that time there was a lockdown all over the world, right? So in the month of May, one of the client called us. Okay, they scheduled a meeting with our team and they informed us that due to the ongoing pandemic, the number of users accessing the bank application, okay, might increase up to 400%. That's what the client said. Client said, due to the ongoing pandemic, and because of that pandemic, people are not going directly to banks, right? So they started using online applications. So considering, I mean, what client said is, due to the pandemic, the number of users might increase up to 400% in next 3 months is what the client said. Now assume that I have already run a load test with 500 users. Assume that I have already run a load test with 500 users. Now tell me what should I do in this case if that is a requirement. Okay, so the 100% load test, okay, was already done with 500 users. When I say 100% load test, it is nothing but this. I've already done with 500 users and it was working fine. Now client said, due to the increase in the number of users accessing the online application, the users might go up to 400% in the next 3 months. Now what should I do? How to test this? Can anyone tell the input like what to test now?
Like 2000 users?
Um, yes, 2000. But anyone else? I mean, do you want me to test with 2000 users, or anyone has any other answer?
You can test with more than 2000, maybe like 2000 plus, to make sure that even if there is increment in any other volumes, like for futuristic purpose.
Okay. So what is your approach? So see, I have already run the 100% load test with 500 users. What is your approach now? So should I run with 2000 users?
Incremental
No, we
approach.
need
Yeah.
yes, incremental approach.
So when the client said the users might increase up to 200%, sorry, up to 400% in the next 3 months. Correct. 400% is nothing but 2000 users, according to this example. That's true. But you cannot directly run with 2000 users. The reason is if that particular test fails for some reason, let's say 2000 users, the application is not able to handle. Okay, the test failed. Now, what will you tell the client? You go and tell the client that, hey, uh, our application is not supporting 2000 users, is what you say to client. Then client will immediately ask you, is it supporting at least 1000 or 1500? That's what they will ask you. So that's the reason generally we don't directly test 400%. So if this test is successful, okay, we increase the users. Okay, we run with the 200% load test and run with 2000 users. And then if this is also successful, then we go to 300% and run with 1500 users. And if this is also successful, then we run with 400% with 2000 users. Okay, now uh, at that point of time, we were supporting around 20 applications, I guess. Okay. Now, when we did the same approach for all 20 applications, we did the same approach for all 20 applications, and and then uh, one second, and then some of the applications were able to withstand to 2000 users, and then some of the users were failing at 1500 users only. Some applications were able to handle 2000, some applications were not able to handle at least 1500. Then what the client might have done at this point, can anyone tell? Any guess? I mean, I'm not saying you should know it, just a guess. If you know, that's fine,
Vertical
otherwise we'll
scaling,
discuss.
horizontal scaling.
Yeah, so due to the time constraint, because client will not have time, client will not lose users, client will not lose business, the client will not be okay to uh, to lose the users just because the application is not ready to handle. So what they do is they will immediately scale up the infrastructure. Okay, that means they increase the number of servers, they increase the servers, or they increase the server configurations. Like if it is a 16 GB RAM, they will increase up to 64 GB RAM. If it's a 8 core processor, they might go to 32 core processor, like that. So when you increase the infrastructure, then automatically 99.999% of the times, okay, the applications will be able to withstand the amount of load for sure. Any questions?
But Krishik, what is the difference between the scalability and the soap testing? It looks like both are same, right?
No, soak test we are running for longer duration, right? Here we
Okay.
run, here the scalability test again we run only for 1 hour.
Okay.
We run for only 1 hour steady state. Okay, and here also we verify all these stuffs. Like basically in every test we verify all these stuffs. The common thing that we verify each and everything. Okay, any
So,
question?
so one thing, Kushik. So, this one for endurance, like selecting the concurrent users, it is very subjective. But what is like your input? Like we should be continuing with the same what we do in load testing, or it
Correct.
should be.
Correct. That's what I suggest. Okay. So I don't want the volume or the user volume to be decreased. Okay. I want the same user volume, whatever we used in the load test should be used in the endurance test as well. And and that's how in whatever the projects in the last many years, whatever the projects I have worked, only 5 to 10% of the projects I have used 75%, but because they were already following it and I couldn't change. Okay, but then when I was the person who has to take the decision, I always prefer to run with 100%, like whatever the volume that I use in the load test, the same volume I prefer to use for endurance test as well. Okay, because why should I reduce the users? Okay, if I want my application to run in a longer duration, what is the reason for reducing the users? I don't see any reason to reduce the users. My application should still support same users for longer duration with respect to the stability. That's what I feel. Okay, so no harm in continuing with 100% of the user same load. So you can also continue, no problem. Okay.
Yeah, one question which is very trivial. So, but you mentioned that client wants to increase the volume by 400%. If I'm saying to increase by 400%, so it means that we have already 100% and we are adding 400% extra. So it means that 2500
No,
means
no, I said
Mhm,
no. There is a difference. Like I didn't say increase by 400%. I said increase up to 400%.
mhm, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Mhm,
there is a slight difference there. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. If it is like if the client says increase by another 400%, yes, then you have to run with up to 2,500.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, And in that case, you need not run 500,000, 1,500 like that. Probably you can start with 500, like, 1,000, 1,500, 2,500, like that. You can give it try. Okay. The next one is volume test. So,
Kushik, I had one question.
yeah.
I'm not sure if it's mentioned in the list, but there's some sort of testing called the breakdown testing. And the process in that testing is like when you're running the test itself, you will keep ramping up the users
Uh,
until
s-
until the system breaks down.
hmm,
So
hmm,
my question was in the use case that you had explained for scalability testing, where
mhm.
the bank wanted to know like till what users it could sustain.
Mhm.
So why did we not employ that strategy and we used a scalability testing strategy?
That's fine. I mean, see, basically what happens is this stress test and scalability test, they need not be performed, in the same project at the same time. See, the reason some projects they go with stress test, some projects they go with scalability test. I mean, I don't see any project using both stress test and scalability test in the same project because both are, not same, but then kind of similar pattern. But then in the stress test, the client might ask you to go ahead and test until it breaks also, that is fine. But here in the scalability test, the requirement can be ad hoc. The requirement is just because the considering the future growth. Okay, and client will not might not tell you to go and test until it breaks. Client will tell you that this could be my future potential growth, and this is what I'm expecting you to test. So the clear number is already defined here. Okay, but whereas in stress test sometimes you don't have a clear number. The client will say you can go ahead and keep on increasing the load until it breaks. So you don't know like whether it will break at 400% or it will break at 300% or it will break at like 500%. You don't know, so you just try until it breaks. So that is a different sort of test. Okay, so if you employ like if you use a scalability test, I personally prefer not to go with stress test. If you go with stress test, I prefer not to use this because think what is the requirement from client and select which type of test you want to run. If client will explicitly say whatever the client says, he will explicitly say that either you test with the users up until it breaks, or client will say that this is my trajectory, increase in the next 1 year or next 6 months. So it is pretty clear. So in the next 1 year or next 6 months, this is what the increase is expected. Then based on that, you can increase the load. Simple. That doesn't mean that you need to test here until it breaks. No, you won't test it until here breaks here. So if you want to test until it breaks, you have to go for a stress test. Okay, so like see these two are like follow some similar pattern, but it looks like similar pattern, they are not similar. You just have to uh, understand what's the client requirement and suggest accordingly. Okay, and in some projects, client will say that I don't have any idea about performance testing. You only decide and let me know which one is best for my application, I'm okay with it. So in that case, always remember, consider this point and then suggest to client. Consider when client says the client doesn't know anything about performance testing, and you can decide because you are a performance expert. So think this point that performance is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability, and suggest them to go and test with a load test and endurance test. Very, very important, this one, and then scalability test. Okay, these three should be enough. And explicitly, if client says anything, then you can go ahead and test it. That is also fine. Okay, so especially when client says like specifically, he will suggest us failover test also. This is in the recent past. This is kind of the test that we are following, but then it is still only very few projects. But then it's a very important test nowadays. I'll tell you. I'll explain you in some time today. So this is volume test. So volume test is same as load test, except that except that huge data will be inserted into database okay. Now for testing purpose, so what I mean to say is this volume test is similar to load test. Now when I say similar or same as load test, that means you do the same thing, whatever you follow here, exactly you follow the same steps here as well. Okay, the only difference is for every application there will be a database, correct? So without database there is no application, because where will we store the application data? In the database only, right? So the database contains huge amount of data at some point. So when there is a huge amount of data in the database, how your application is responding is what we are trying to check in the volume test. Okay, but the users will be same, the steady state will be same, we verify the same thing, response times SLA will be same, everything will be same. Only thing is, let's say in load test, I'm just giving example. For example, in load test, while running the load test, we had 1 lakh records. We had 1 lakh records in the database. Then for volume test, okay, we can increase to, let's say, 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs depending on the client input. Depending on client input. So what I mean to say is every application will keep on increasing in terms of data, correct? See, for example, I started a new university. Okay, I started a new university. Now I have all computer science batches, mechanical, civil, electronics and communications, aeronautical, chemical engineering, so many, pharmacy, master of computer applications. So many courses are there. So many departments are there in my university. This is the first year that I started my university. Now, when I started in the first year, let's say every section or every department I have 100 students, like that I have 10 departments. Let's say I have 1,000 users, so, sorry, 1,000 students. I have 1,000 students. Okay, I have some 50 staff. Okay, to another 30 supporting staff. Okay, so I need to store all the information of related to students, administration, the different courses that we are offering, the different departments that we have, the head of the departments. Okay, so much of information we need to store in the database, university database, correct? Now after 4 or 5 years, my university students will increase up to 10,000. Now imagine how much data I should store in my application, college application database. I cannot lose the previous data also, right? Correct. So I need to save all the data of my, all the historical data I need to save in the application database. Okay. Now when there is a huge data in the database, there is every chance that the application might perform slowly because of the slow SQL queries. Okay, SQL, like it's called a structured query language, which we use to interact with the database and do some database level operations, like inserting data in the database, update data in the database, delete data in the database, or whatever it is. Okay, so in definitely in future the database is gonna double, triple, okay, or it's gonna increase like 5 to 10 times also, we don't know. So that's the reason when there is a huge data in the database, how your application is supporting. Okay, I started a bank. Now I have only 5,000 customers. After 5 years, I might have 2 lakhs customers. Now, where should I store the all 2 lakhs customers data? In the database. That means database is growing daily, daily, daily it is growing. Now, when database is growing daily, there is every chance that you might have some performance issues in database also. That means when you're querying the database, like writing some SQL queries and stuff, so and so. Correct. So considering that, now itself, okay, we increase the volume in the database, okay, like this. So in load test, if there are 1 lakh records, okay, in volume test we might increase up to 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs depending on client input, and then run the test for 1 hour. Any questions?
So one thing, Kushik. So maybe like in load test, maybe we are running with 1 lakh use 1 lakh records, right? But
Hmm,
in production, like how many records are there in production? Because in production, in my opinion and generally what I think that we try to like map with the production records, that how many records are there in
correct,
the production.
correct. So what happens is, in general, whatever the number of records we have in production database, we try to map it, or we try to clone that database or do some dummy database with similar number of records in the test environment and run a performance test or a load test. Okay, that is fine. But sometimes we might need to increase the records in database and see how it's gonna do in future. So then we will do some volume test. Okay, but normally as part of your load test itself, you try to match the number of records in the production directly. That means in the very first test itself, when you run, first you can check with your application team what is the data that you have in data test environment, what is the data that you have in production environment. You can try and match both the data. Okay, for the load test. But for volume test, you might want to intentionally insert huge amount of data into the database. Okay, just to see whether will there be any future performance issues with respect to the database SQL queries and all that stuff. Okay, and this is done very, very rare. Okay, if you ask me, sir, when did you do this? Sorry, I didn't do this since last 3 4 years, because there is no requirement. I mean, here we, as one of you said, like we here in the load test itself, in whatever the data we have in the database, test database, we match it with the production database. So in production, if you have 5 lakh records, in test environment also we try to clone or copy that, dump or into test environment with 5 lakh records and go ahead and run the load test like that. Okay, so anything is fine. It's all depends on the client input and the project that you are working. Okay, sometimes all these will be beneficial, but you have to understand what is your client requirement, what is the process they are following, how frequently they are running the load test and all that stuff you need to understand from your project point of view. Okay, so any other questions?
This is
Krishi,
completely a database testing.
Yeah, more of, yeah, yes, because we focus more on how the SQL queries are performing. I mean, we again make use of APM tools. We can capture like which query is taking how much time, which query is running very slow. All that stuff we can capture from the APM tools. Okay, so that's it. These five are very, very, I mean, these five are is important, but then this we generally don't do it frequently. Okay, that's what I can say. So we in the first four, we can pick, I mean, we might implement or run any of these frequently for sure. Like load test is for sure, there is no doubt about it, because without this there is nothing else. So apart from load test, what else they want to run is all, it's up to client. See, for example, in my previous project which I supported, I tested like load test and endurance test only. Okay, so in the recent project which I supported, I just ran only load test, nothing else. So it all depends on client. Sometimes client says I don't know anything, it's up to you, then we can take a call and run one load test, one endurance test like that. I'll tell you what should be your strategy. I'll tell you in our upcoming sessions, like how many cycles of load test, how many rounds of endurance test you want to run. We can discuss in our upcoming session. Any questions? mm, I can explain failover test. uh,
Krishi.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
basically, when you say that we have to test on the database, so we always have to check the stored procedure response times or queries response time in the app.
Yeah, you see, you can check in the, I mean, and when you say in the app, I mean, that's where we make use of monitoring tools, just to go to that level and see which query is taking time and all that stuff. For example, now if I have some application, okay, let's say I have this link. Now if I click on this get diagnostics, so in the back end it might go to some query and some database and get the query for me. So I don't know like which query it is calling, right? So that's the reason we use APM tool and understand what is the underlying architecture. First of all, we have to understand the underlying architecture and then see to which component or database it is connecting to in the database, and then make use of APM tools and analyze at that level. So that's the reason our next session is importance of software architecture. Okay, our next session will be importance of software architecture. I thought of covering it today, but it's almost 9 p.m, right? So no problem, we will cover tomorrow. We will discuss importance of software architecture, what is a server, the entire architecture, what is web server, app server, database server, protocol, and then we will also discuss about failover testing, because there is some dependency. We have to understand the other terms just to better understand the failover test. And we'll also see the performance testing life cycle. That means when a new tester or new performance tester onboarded into any performance testing project, what are his or her day-to-day work activities. Okay, what is the performance testing life cycle? If I ask you to test my application for performance, where do you start? How to start? Okay, should I directly write scripts? No, you have to do a lot of pre-work. What is that pre-work? Okay, we'll discuss in our upcoming sessions. So tomorrow's session is all about understanding software architecture, web server, app server, database server, scale up, scale down, protocol, and then failover test. Any questions for today?
Out of the syllabus question, Pradeep.
Yeah, no problem.
See, the other day when you are showing, right, you have shown us this tool will support two languages. One is C language and the other one is JavaScript language.
Correct.
So generally, in a real time, which one people will prefer, C or JavaScript? Or we both
Mm,
have to learn?
no, 99%. I mean, as far as I know, 95, more than 95% of the projects they prefer C language. JavaScript, I mean, in fact, if you ask me, sir, how much of JavaScript you have seen. So in my entire career, there was no project with JavaScript. Every project, every company that I supported, everything was C language only. But then because the JavaScript was recently added to that, okay. One more thing is why, even though it is recently added, why we prefer to go with C language is this tool is there since so many years, okay, almost like more than 10, 15, 20 years like that. Okay, so since then it is supporting C language. Okay, now for every problem that you face in terms of scripting or whatever it is, okay, there is a solution, okay, supporting with C language. If you go and search any issue, you search, you'll get a solution, because it's been there since so many years, since ages. And for every scripting challenge or whatever it is, you get solution very easily. But with the recent JavaScript, there is not much support. But then that is one reason. And the second reason is, if you join any project, okay, there will be some lead. I'm just telling you some practical scenarios now. Okay,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you join any project, there will be some lead. Now lead, how much of experience does lead have? 15. I'm just saying like
15.
12, 13, 15, 18, like that. Okay, now that means the lead might be working since so many years in load using LoadRunner.
Right.
Correct, that means the lead will be proficient in C language. Then even if you ask that I will write in JavaScript, most probably the lead will say no. The reason the lead will say is the team should follow some uniformity. If you are, let's say you are working on some application, you developed a script using with the help of JavaScript support. Now suddenly you have to move to some other project, or you are on sick leave for 15 days. Now some other tester has to fix that scripts, they are not working, they have to fix it and run. Now that tester knows more of, was working more on C language support. Then it will be time taking and troublesome for other team members in your absence. That's the reason they follow uniformity. Every project will, as per my knowledge, everyone will follow C language. But then if your project is asking you to develop a script using JavaScript, you can. But I have never seen that. There is no hard rule that you have to use JavaScript. It's up to you, by the way. But then we prefer
Right.
C language only.
Thanks, Krish.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah,
Can you explain
Kushik, I am
memory
Ramesh.
lead too?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Can you explain memory leak?
See, it's a very big concept actually. We will I mean basically it is covered as part of our upcoming session at the end. So I will tell you at a very high level in 2 3 points. Okay, so try to understand because it's a different concept. We need to discuss the entire garbage collection mechanism. Okay, how the garbage collection mechanism works is what we have to understand. So what happens? I'll tell you at a very high level for today. So what happens is when developer writes, okay, for every project there will be some memory allocated for the servers, right? For every application there will be some memory allocated. So don't get confused like what is memory and all that stuff. Every machine will have it, CPU and memory. For example, if I go, okay, if I see here, see if you go to performance, see here, CPU, memory like this. So CPU utilization, you see it's almost 100%, 78%, it's not 78 80, it's shuffling between. Memory you see like 79% usage. So when you are running a load test in any of the load generator machine, in that machine, I mean not load generator machine, basically when you run a test, okay, let's not confuse you. So let's say when you run a test, what will happen, I'll tell you, because I mean this I could have answered better after tomorrow's session, because tomorrow we have this server, so you will understand what is app server
No
and all.
problem. Like if it's part of the coverage, then shouldn't be a
Yeah,
problem.
it is there. Yeah. So I mean, even if I use the terms, like if I say that, for example, in app server, when you run any application in application server, there is something called memory utilization, which might increase up to 100%, like something like this. So if it reaches 100%, the application will crash or restart. So it should not reach 100%, by the way. Why? Because there is some other mechanism called garbage collection. Okay, especially okay. So this garbage collection mechanism will run in parallel. Okay, when the application is running, this mechanism will also run in parallel because they configure it. Now what this will do is, whenever the memory is increasing, by the way, if increasing or not increasing doesn't matter. So whenever the application is running, if there are any objects which are not used, or if there is any space that it can free up the memory, it will free up. That means on one side, when you're running the application, it will increase the memory. On the other side, garbage collection will free up the memory. So you are increasing 10%, garbage collection might free up something like from that. If you increase little bit, again garbage collection might free up something. That means it should never touch 100% if this entire process works as expected. But in some cases, if there is some issue with this mechanism, then this might reach 100%, and then your application will crash or it will restart. Okay, so in that case, that is called memory leak. So because of memory leak only, it is reaching 100%. Ideally, otherwise it should not happen. So we will discuss that in detail. Okay, I'll tell you how garbage collection works. Okay, what is the algorithm or it follows. Okay, and when this memory will be utilized, when you run the application, when this memory will be utilized. Okay, and how garbage collection will free up the memory, I'll tell you, I'll explain clearly with diagrams in our upcoming sessions.
Okay.
Okay,
And
but
you
it
will
is
cover
actually,
thread count and disk space and all, right?
sorry.
Will you cover thread count, disk space and all in that?
Yeah, so basically I will explain you like what is a thread dump and heap dumps. So heap dump is nothing but like when you have some memory leak here, right? For example, here you have memory leak issue. So you download something called heap dumps, okay, and you analyze like why, what is happening and all that stuff. It's a different concept. So I will explain you what is heap dump, what should you analyze from the heap dumps and all that stuff. I'll explain. Okay, I'll like I'll use one any tool like heaphero.io or something like that, and I'll show you like what is that you have to analyze in the heap dumps, and what is that you have to inform developer. I will explain you that. At the same time, we will discuss about thread dumps also. I'll tell you when to download thread dumps, what is that you have to verify from the thread dumps, what is a thread life cycle, what is a thread, what is the difference between thread and a process. I'll explain all these things in our upcoming sessions.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
yeah. So it will be enough for your interview purpose for sure. Okay.
Krushik, Nandish here. This is my first class. I have a couple of doubts.
Oh, sorry.
During this course, will you cover the API testing also?
Yes, yeah, I will tell you how to develop scripts using API through LoadRunner, and execution process is same for
Ah, yes,
any
yes.
web application or API. Anything is execution process is same.
Okay, and using LoadRunner, we can test both SOAP and REST APIs, right?
Yes, yes, we can test both SOAP and REST here.
Okay,
So
and one more thing,
yeah,
in the load runner, we can perform an individual application, SIT testing, we can perform system testing. Basically, we can take a single application end-to-end scenario we can perform. Suppose there is a scenario, for example, in our organization, I'm working for end-to-end testing, where it has multiple systems involved. To create example, assume in a telecom domain, to create an one order, there is a source system. That order will flow till end around 4 to 5 systems, which has both UI, it has a separate APIs, it has a
mm,
database. That end-to-end
mm,
flow is there. That can
yeah.
also be tested in this one.
See, yeah, I have worked in many of the projects, something like that, for telecom projects only. So what we generally do is we test, I mean, the entire end-to-end through backend services, because one component will interact with other component in the architecture. So
Yes.
we what we will do, we will take all the sample REST APIs, or whatever the input, I mean whatever the input. So we develop the script and we try to apply load on that. That means we might not use UI completely because it is interacting with so many components. That's the reason we take the integration points, like component 1, component 2, what is the integration point, we take that API. Component 2, component 3, what is the integration point, we take that API. We test all these APIs separately in a single test.
Oh,
Okay, in a single test we create multiple scripts for all of these APIs, and we test simultaneously basically.
okay, Kush. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Kushik,
Okay.
this is my first class as well.
uh,
Like, how long is this expected to be scheduled, like the sessions that we'll be having?
uh, Sessions will be up to 40 sessions,
Okay.
because actually load runner we can complete in 30, but then there are some bonus topics like Dynatrace, and some true client protocol, and like heap dumps, thread dumps, and garbage collection process, and some load balancer algorithms discussion, interview questions, for 2 sessions. All that stuff will take up to 40 sessions.
Okay. My second question is around LoadRunner, coding and all, like the functions. Would we be covering advanced
Yes.
scripting for LoadRunner? And
Yes.
another one was around Dynatrace. Like, I do not have exposure to Dynatrace, so that is one of the reasons I had taken this course. So, like,
Okay.
by the end of this course, will I be able to practically use Dynatrace?
Yes, yes, definitely. So first, if I answered to your first question, is uh, like, yes, we will be covering scripting from basic to advanced. That's the reason it will be 30 sessions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up in 20 also. So the reason why we are having more number of sessions is we will practice scripting on up to 5 applications. Okay, so it's not like we just take one application and develop scripts and test it and analyze it and close it. So in this course, we are giving more focus on scripting, because every application might be little bit different, and every application you might face a different challenge. That's the reason the more number of applications you practice, the more comfortable you'll be in your real-time projects. So that's the reason we are practicing scripting on multiple applications. Okay, we will be practicing some basic to advanced scripts. Okay, like you have to write custom, very much custom code to complete the required script. Okay, so that's the reason it is taking more time for scripting. The reason, on the other day, like maybe you didn't join on the demo session, so one of the participant was asking why so much effort is required on scripting. Like so what my answer to that is, execution anyone can learn very quickly and complete. See, if let's say I joined a project, and they have given me 2 applications. Okay, that means, see, when they give applications, it will be our own application. That means no one will interfere. I have to take that application end to end. Okay, when I say end to end, I have to understand the requirements, I have to develop scripts, I have to execute, I have to analyze, I have to provide my observations to client. No one will interfere. I mean, no one will do your work, right? So let's say if you're stuck somewhere in execution, if you ping your friend and they will assist you immediately, they will, you can get on a call and then just ask them like, hey, this is not working, I'm trying to create a scenario, I'm trying to execute, it is getting stuck somewhere. Definitely they will help you because it's a easy process, and everyone can, even if you're not aware of execution also, you can learn in 1 or 2 days. Okay, and analysis, again, you can, at least you can do basic initial analysis in 1 1 2 days at least. You keep on practicing. But scripting is something which might trouble you at some point. Okay, so that's the reason my focus is more on scripting side. And when you are stuck for any of the scripting side, trust me, nobody will help you. I mean, if you are really a close friend or colleague, they might sit with you for 1 or 2 hours and try to assist you, but nobody will work for your application for 8 hours per day. Okay, that's the reason I don't want my participants to face trouble during scripting part. Okay, that's the most important thing. Other than that, everything, anyone can assist in your project, you can take anyone help. At least you can call me, I can also guide you on call also, that is also fine, it's easy to. But scripting, I cannot assist directly. Your colleagues cannot sit with you for long hours and assist you, you know. In very rarely they might assist, but it's not something they can assist you every day or something like that, or frequently. So you need to master scripting. That's the reason scripting we have given more importance, basic to advanced. That is my answer for that. The other question what you asked is Dynatrace. Yes. So I will be giving you a recorded session of AppDynamics. That is one of the APM tool, and I will be taking a live session on Dynatrace. Okay, and
Mhm.
I will execute the test, and then I'll show you practically how it is coming up in the Dynatrace graphs and all that metrics. So we will see all the live metrics, okay, in the Dynatrace. So I will like you know uh, uh, assist you, or I will explain the concepts that every performance tester should know, and for every performance tester should, whatever they work in their day-to-day activities as within the performance testing project, I will train on all those concepts. So once you are done with that Dynatrace sessions, if I mean, I'm sure you will be able to monitor the your application performance in your project without anyone's assistance for sure.
Thanks, Krishik, for the detailed response.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions from anyone else?
For the script, you said not most of the time not Java. Like I don't have any clue about Java or
No,
C.
we are not. Yeah. So okay. So we are not discussing about JavaScript, but we will be discussing about some of the basic concepts of C language, which are very much needed to customize or enhance your script. Okay. It doesn't mean that you need to learn C language at an intermediate level or advanced level. Only basic knowledge is enough. But only thing is, when you keep on practicing the basic stuff, it will improve your thought process. And when you get a script to be developed, immediately the thought process will all the practice that you have done to enhance the code or write some scripts, it will give you an idea about how to develop the script, and you can continue working like that. So what you need is just to practice the sessions on day-to-day basis. C language sessions are very very important. Actually, in my previous batches also, some of them they take C language for granted, and what happens is, when I complete C language sessions and move to LoadRunner, okay, LoadRunner scripting. Now what I will do, I will implement the C language concepts that we have learned in the LoadRunner script. Okay, then if they don't practice the C language sessions, okay, and then when I try to implement those concepts in the load runner scripting, okay, they will get confused, or they might not be able to understand because they don't practice C language. That's the reason I always stress the same point to every participant, that please do practice those 3 to 4 sessions of C language sessions without fail. Okay, it will definitely help you. It's a one-time activity, just 4 sessions. If you practice those 4 sessions, it will be there with you for lifetime. Okay, that's what I was saying. It will be easy for you if you practice for at least 3-4 days. That's it. No need to take any additional stress. Don't think that you are coming from non-IT background or you are not aware of C language. Nothing. It's just a simple basic coding language enhancements what we do. So no need to worry about it.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone else? Okay. So if you have any further questions, do reach out to me on WhatsApp. Okay. I'll be there in the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day. Hope to see all of you in the upcoming sessions as well. Thank you.